it popped into my head about, oh, it's back to school, and how we've done a few things here on the podcast a long time ago about children specifically and parenting.
hmm
Um, but we haven't really revisited it. And I felt like this would be a good time to really talk about how at this time of year, kids are going back to school, and that brings with it a lot of stress to the kids, to the family,
hmm
of new things, new routines, all that stuff. And really, if I'd had this tool when you guys were younger, it would been easier. I mean, Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, your human design guide.
And I'm Haley, on this journey with you to uncover the power of human design.
Together, we're here to explore how embracing your authentic self is the ultimate path to a life of more freedom and fulfillment.
Welcome to the Human Design Hive Podcast. Let's get into it.
Well, hello there, Haley. How are you today?
Good.
Good, and welcome back to you listening to the Human Design Hive Podcast. As it said in the introduction, I am Dana Phillips, and with me is Haley, my daughter, Haley Grooms.
Hello. Yes.
And we're very happy that y'all are listening today. And Haley and I just had a delightful week together, which went by way too fast.
So fast.
I don't even know what happened. We didn't even do anything, She came to visit, stay with me. My sister was here as well. We got one trip to the beach.
Yes.
A mile
And it
away.
was very windy, and the surf was so rough.
And it was Sunday afternoon, like 4:00, but that's our preferred time.
Mm-hmm.
And but we did it. We got the beach in. But
We did it.
with you and Nancy both being people who work from home, you had to work all week.
Mhm.
But we had fun, and let's tell everybody what's something we did this week that we've been talking about doing for a long time.
We got tattoos.
We got tattoos. My second, Haley's first.
Nancy's third.
Yeah, look at her, the rebel.
I know.
So yes, we've been talking about it for a long time. I mean, the one tattoo I have, if you're watching this, I have one on my wrist, Om symbol on my left wrist here, which I got probably, I think maybe 15 years ago or so. And I thought about getting a tattoo for so long. I was early 40s and, or around 40. Took me that long to think about it. Thought about it for years. And then this happens to me sometimes. The pressure just builds. And I was like, I got to do it today. And I went after yoga class, didn't plan it out. And my friend went with me. And I really wish I had thought about it because I wear a watch all the time on my left wrist. So most of the time it's covered up. Nobody ever sees it, but I know it's there.
Very subtle.
Yeah. But do you want to explain what we got? If anybody's curious, I think it's cute.
It is cute. So we each got our star sign in kind of this loose constellation symbol thing.
Representation, yeah. Of what the constellation kind of looks like. I'm not even really sure because like they're just like circles and little starburst symbols. I think maybe where major stars in the constellations are.
I have no idea how what I got looks like Pisces, but I don't know. It looks
super
cute still.
Yeah, they're cute because they're very teeny and they're little circles. We can kind of show it, but we can't really show it. You can't really see it.
It's like right above or right under our elbows on our forearms.
Yeah.
So
inner elbow.
It's awkward.
Me and my right. Yours is on your right too?
We're on the same side, right?
But anyway, so that was the first part of it.
And then, because we weren't sure what to get, and me and Nancy had like these hearts because on your side, your mom's maiden name was Hart. So she kind of had that thing, and then we decided to kind of combine the two. And so we
had talked about script from my mom's handwriting as well, because my mom passed in 2012. And I have lots of her handwriting on hand because she was
Yes.
unable to speak in their last couple months of life. So she wrote everything, which is hilarious.
It
I
is
mean,
quite fun to go back through.
see someone's personality come through in just what they're writing. Like I said, I read it and it's weird how many times I think about things she said during that time she was in hospice for like a month. And I realized, oh wow, she wasn't saying any of that verbally. It was all written. But in my
Mhm.
mind, the memory is verbal. It's very strange.
Oh,
But
that is
anyways,
very interesting. So then we have little hearts. We put little hearts in each of our little things. So we're matchy but not matchy.
yes. Because I'm a Scorpio.
Yes.
As you said, you're a Pisces, and
Mhm.
Nancy is a Taurus.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like what you posted on Instagram. I like what you said about it later really encapsulated
Mhm.
the meaning, which was,
It was a few hearts always connected by the stars.
oh, I love that. Because we are far flung across the United States, but we are all definitely connected. So, yeah, fun. Second one for me. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, slippery slope. You get one, you might be like, no,
And yeah. I was talking with Presley when I got back. First of all, I was like, "What do you think of my tattoo?" And he goes, "Looks like you drew it on with Sharpie." And I was like,
yeah.
"Rude."
A
But
very thin
then
Sharpie. They're not thick. They're very teeny little
yeah.
tattoos.
But then,
Ever
Saturday, I think
practical.
it was, our friend
Mhm.
came over and we hung out in the pool, and we were talking about
You're not supposed to
tattoos.
submerge it.
I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't. I did not. Me,
Mhm.
rule follower. I did not.
Mhm.
But so we were talking about tattoos, and I asked Presley, I was like, "Would you get a tattoo?" And he's like, "Yeah, but if I did, I'd go all in." And then I was like, "What does all in mean?" I don't know.
Like
No, I
you're
asked him,
dead.
I was like, I think then I asked him, "What would you get?" And he's like, "I don't know." And then I was like, "So what does all in mean?" He's like, "Oh, half sleep." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Taking so long time to think that one out. Oh, we forgot to
Uh,
mention your brother got a tattoo as well. He did
yeah.
not get the same as us because he's
No.
not going to do that.
No.
But he he got the biggest tattoo, his
Yeah.
first tattoo, which I was really shocked that he wanted to get a tattoo because let's just say, yeah, used to, God, I don't know if I should say this, but I would often call your brother nickname to his face. I don't make fun of him, but I kind of make fun of him. I kind of would call him Veal because he's so tender.
Oh.
And I'm sorry for all you animal lovers out there. I don't eat veal, but he's this big burly looking guy,
Hmm.
but he's tender,
He's a softie.
tender-hearted. And but no, he got an inner arm
Mhm.
forearm tattoo as well as a symbol that means something for him and a game that he likes, and it's pretty cool looking, very
It is
Nordic
cool.
looking.
Yeah, I like it.
And that one was big, and he had a lot of feeling. He had the
Yeah.
longest tattoo, and or like time. It didn't take very long, and I didn't
Mhm.
hardly feel mine because drew it on with a Sharpie apparently. Anyway, so now we were all bonded before, but now we're all marked as well. So
Yeah.
there may be more in the future. I love. I'm glad we did it, but
Yeah. It
anyway,
was fun.
so that was fun. So we finally have that memento of our time
Mhm.
together. And so gosh, here it is, the end of August already. And
Wild.
I know this has been a weird summer. Do we say that every time? Do people always say it? It's been a weird
Yes.
summer. Or the
It
summer flew by.
I saw
Or
another reel again talking about, like, time perception theory, and it's like, does
oh,
it feel like after 20 like, ever since 2020 or it started the video started saying, "How do you feel if I told you that in, like, 3 months or whatever it is, 4 months, I don't even know, 2020 is gonna be 5 years from then." It's like, "Oh my god, it is."
what?
So
Say
the
what?
reel started, it says, "Would you" it was like, "Would you believe me if I told you that in 4 months,
Yeah.
2020 will have been 5 years
5 years.
ago?"
Okay. Okay. I got what you're saying now. All right. I got you.
Thank you. I got
I
it
was
better that
like,
time.
wait a minute. 3 months is 5 years ago? What are you talking about?
And then it's always because, like, legitimately, I can't believe that was almost 5 years ago.
Because, yeah, that was 2020 is when you got your job and,
I
right?
know.
Moved to Greenville and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
beginning in
Yeah.
March. Yeah.
Yeah. What a long, strange trip it's been. But
It's been a while.
time is funny. Well, I was in meditation this morning, and I had this thought come in. And since I also listen to a lot of Abraham Hicks, sometimes in the morning before I meditate. So when something came in, I was like, oh, it was an idea of something for us to talk about. And I don't normally do this, like record and then try to release something the next day, but I felt this was kind of timely. Next week, we'll have our Gates episode. But I was just thinking about the time of year it is here at the end of August. And I think by now, most kids are back to school, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I think so.
depending on where you are in this country, it can be anywhere from the first week of August to the last.
Crazy.
Colleges here just started last week because my college student, my niece Lakeland, has um, moved out into her campus apartment on the same day that you guys got here. So she
I think it was the day
vacated her
before.
room. Yeah, it was like I was running an Airbnb. No, no, it was
Well,
Friday
Nancy
morning.
did.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't get there
Nancy
till
got here.
Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was running my own little Airbnb there. I was like, you've got to check out. You can't come in till 4. Got to get her out. And so she has been experiencing a lot of anxiety, even though this is her sophomore year. There's still lots of new things
Mhm,
happening because she is living in a campus apartment. It's student housing, but it's a different situation. She doesn't like her apartment so much because she doesn't have the great daylight room. Meaning her the only window in her room faces an interior hallway, so it's dark. But I just started thinking about, and it popped into my head about, oh, it's back to school, and how we've done a few things here on the podcast a long time ago about children specifically and parenting.
mhm,
Um, but we haven't really revisited it. And I felt like this would be a good time to really talk about how at this time of year, kids are going back to school, and that brings with it a lot of stress to the kids, to the family,
mhm,
of new things, new routines, all that stuff. And really, if I'd had this tool when you guys were younger, it would been easier. I mean, it wasn't too hard, but there are certain things through the school year that definitely knowing your child's human design can help you help them
mhm,
throughout the year, if that makes
mhm,
sense. And even like with Lakeland being a college student, knowing her design like I do, I can reassure her that it may feel a certain way right now, but she's a 2-4 and profile, and she's a generator, and I know certain a lot of things about her design. I can reassure her that it's okay. It's just a transition. You have friends. You're going to make new friends. Don't isolate yourself. This is just anxiety. This is just an old pattern. This is just this insecurity here. And really try to help her navigate that as she transitions. Because trust me, she can come up with a lot of things to worry about.
Oh, yes.
A lot. We can all relate. So, anyway, so I just kind of did just a quick little bit of research this morning, and just with our own experience of back to school time, which let me
Mhm.
tell you, for all you mamas out there that are sending off your school age children, God bless you. I do not miss the school years of like, I mean, you have a lot to do and there's a lot going on, but man, it's a lot having
Mhm.
kids in school and trying to keep up with everything. And like I said, when you talked about 2020 and the pandemic, I was so grateful that I did not have to be one of those parents that had to do all that stuff, because I don't know how I would have survived. I mean, we would have done it. We would have gotten through. But I thought about it all the time. Like that was so
You
much on the poor parents and children.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, me and Ian had already done virtual school before.
Well, you had, but this was so different.
I
These
know.
It was so unwell thought out. I don't know if that's not a real term. Unwell thought out, not well thought out, I should say.
More appropriate.
Yeah, it was bad. But now they're all back, and so there's a lot of things that stress kids out, stress parents out, and I think that human design can really help navigate that, because it really helps us understand each other and see
Mhm.
where we're coming from and how we're meant to actually interact and engage. And so knowing this about your kid, I think can be, or children, kids, children, could be very helpful. So
Mhm.
what do you think? I've got a list here, but I'm just curious. What do you think, just off the top of your head? There's no
Mm.
wrong answer. We'll see what we can do here. Maybe you could tell me yourself, like starting a new school year, thinking back, college or earlier, like
Mhm.
what gave you the most, like thinking about stress, like the upcoming school year? Was there anything?
Well, you gotta always make sure you have the right first day outfit.
Did you really think about that?
Yes,
Not
because you
when you were
gotta
in
go.
elementary school.
Well, no, I wore my little pink snowman sweater.
Oh, you
But,
did love
like,
that
that
sweater.
was always a thing. Because I mean,
Really?
high school and girls are horrible.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, just,
And it's
like,
so worse now. You weren't even like
I
mega
didn't have social
Instagram.
media. I know.
You did a little bit,
Well, I
didn't you?
did I got into it, but, like, it definitely was not
Twitter, that was
this
the Twitter
that it is
years for
now.
you, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. It's Twitter.
Haley.
Oh.
I didn't know Haley was on Twitter. I don't think until Hunter, her bonus brother, outed her one day. He just wanted to. I don't know. He just loves stirring the pot. Tell me,
Yeah, he does.
Haley's quite the potty mouth over there on Twitter.
I didn't even read him out. My God. Leave me
So much
alone.
angst. So much angst.
So angsty.
Look at you now. So okay, so you were worried about your first day outfit in high school.
Well,
Did you ever?
you always gotta pick the right outfit. And
Yeah.
then,
Did you
like,
ever?
what?
No, keep going.
I was gonna say, like, for me, it was just I never wanna look stupid. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean that as, like, what I'm choosing to wear, like, doing
Mm-hmm.
something stupid or being thought of as weird.
Mm.
Uh, I
Yeah.
mean, it's always, like I don't know if I don't necessarily recall like, in high school and stuff, being nervous about, like, making friends because I had friends. It
Mm-hmm.
was a lot more popular than I thought, apparently. And then, I mean, like, in college, let's see, I'm trying to think. Kind of similar things, like, I don't know. I was always, I think, more concerned with the academics of it.
Oh,
I
okay.
put
I was
pressure
wondering
on
if you were ever
myself for
going to
that.
get there. I was like, maybe you weren't worried about academics because you did pretty well, but I know that you did do well in school, but you did work at it. Like it
Mhm,
wasn't like your brother who just did it, who was annoying. But anyway, so yeah, so well, that is definitely one of the things top of the list that a lot of kids struggle with. That what you're saying about social pressure, I think, is a little bit older as they get a little bit older.
mhm,
Um, Thinking about, and honestly, I don't really know the audience here who's listening, what your children, what ages and everything, but I do think that for any kid, the transition from summer back to school time is challenging because there's so much freedom in summertime of like you
mhm,
don't have all the pressures, you don't have all the things unless maybe you were in school sports and you had to start early, you had to get back into school stuff. But really, I think for me also the hardest adjustment was the routine adjustment.
mhm. Yeah.
And I wasn't going to put this on the top of the list as adjusting to the new routine, but when I think about it, it is kind of a place to start because we stay up later in the summertime, you can sleep in later. And I
Mhm.
know that, I mean, do you remember we're like, okay, next week, you're going to start getting up earlier. So you start backing up that time a little bit, right?
Kind of, yeah.
So when I thought about that, because that was something that came up, was adjusting to a new routine, I was like, okay, thinking about human design. Well, first thing that pops in my mind is because I am someone who's very tied to routine, looking at either in your own chart or your child's chart.
Right.
So there is a channel in human design, channel of rhythm. It connects the sacral to the G center. One end is the 5, on the other end is the 15. And the 5 is all about the natural rhythm of things, the seasons, the routine,
Mhm,
everything has a time, a season, And people that have this gate, such as myself, usually do have their own way of doing things, their own set routines, which can be very, very uncomfortable when you have to adjust to other people's routines. And be mindful of that with your child, understanding that this transition could be a little bit harder. So like I said, maybe that is why I was like, let's start a little bit earlier, which it may be too late now for that, but
Mhm.
let's start adjusting our schedule so that when we really need to do it, it's a little bit easier.
Mhm.
That's definitely one thing to look at. Another one to look at, as far as like new routine and everything, is first of all, uh, sleep styles are really important when it comes to sticking to a routine. So
What do you mean by that?
I'm going to tell you.
Oh,
So
please
we've
do.
kind of talked about it when we talk about type, about how, depending on your sacral definition, if you have a defined sacral generator types, that would be generators, manifesting generators. We often talk about how this center is always on, it's sustainable, it can keep going, yada, yada, yada. We
Mhm.
know this. And a generator type is the best use of their energy is to use that energy throughout the day. And really, to get a good night's sleep, you need to, they say, exhaust yourself. But I mean, I don't think you have to like kill yourself to get a good
Mhm.
night's sleep, but
Mm.
it just means, using up that energy throughout the day, because a generator, if they haven't been using up that energy and they try to go to bed before they're like tired, they're just going to lay there and not sleep. And
Yes.
that means that if your child is having trouble falling asleep, maybe getting them to, because they're at school all day, but they don't get a lot of activity throughout the
No.
day.
So
Unfortunately,
much
it's
sitting.
awful. Yeah, so much sitting. To make sure that maybe get them active in the afternoon or in the evenings, playing outside if they can, or if they are in some kind of sports activities, or just kind of burning off some of that extra energy so that when it is time to go to bed, they're going to be tired and they'll get a good night's sleep, and then they'll be rested and they'll be able to get
Mhm.
up again. That's one thing to look at. And then those that are undefined projectors, such as yourself, manifestors, reflectors, that sacral center being undefined means that it really needs time to kind of wind down at the end of the day. And almost, they talk a lot about being able to maybe recline, lay down a little bit for 20 minutes or half hour before you're ready to go to sleep,
Mhm.
because laying down helps discharge kind of all that pent up sacral energy, not pent up, but accumulated sacral energy that you have held on to. What's another way we talked about helping get rid of or just kind of winding down? What's your favorite way to wind down?
A shower.
A shower. Taking those night showers, Haley, or a
Mhm.
bath. I mean, you took a
Yeah.
bath. Like I had you kids, that was bath time was at night after dinner,
Mhm.
before bed is always a good way. Water in particular for projectors are really good to help kind of
Mhm.
wash the day off of them. But I would think back to how you guys, you and your brother, 2 years apart, but and I would put you to bed at different time at the same time generally, because
Mhm.
bath time was the
It's
same
easier for you.
when you were little, right? But you required me to like be with you, lay down sometimes with you, either read or lay there. And it's interesting when you think about this projector style or non-sacral style of having to wind down. Like you liked getting into bed, getting all cozy, and you either
Mhm.
wanted me to stay there with you or lay down with you. You weren't scared or anything. You just liked having the attention. And sometimes you would fall asleep while I was there. Now Ian would be a freaking giggle monster till he fell asleep. He would be all like wiggly and everything else, and he usually was running around a little bit more in the evening than you did. But yeah, so even if your children are not small, really, if you are willing to experiment with this, try encouraging them to, if they are non-sacral type, to just, I mean, it's good for anybody. Get the phone away, Don't
Mhm.
go on the TV. See if they could either lay down on the couch or in the room or shower. See if that helps. And then sacral types, just make sure they have plenty of activity throughout the day so they could be tired. Another thing about routine. So, or yeah, I guess adjusting to a new routine. So, one thing we don't talk about too much about in the spleen
Mhm.
center
Mhm.
is the undefined spleen.
Oh.
They often talk about it's a little more fluid with time.
Uh,
I'm not really sure, but I can attest to that. That
but don't you
if
have a
you're
defined spleen?
I have a defined spleen, I can be on time. I can. I
You
can.
manipulate the time.
It's my favorite. But I'm never like half hour late or just
No.
forget what time it is and that I stood someone up or any of that stuff, right? Generally.
Mhm.
Um, whereas your father, who
Mm.
is undefined there, definitely has um a more fluid relationship with time. He definitely needs help with keeping on time. And so if your student, your child does have an undefined spleen, maybe making sure that you give them enough clues, transition times, things like that, timelines, touch points that they'll need, especially in the morning, to make sure you get them out the door in the
Mhm.
morning, and just know that you may have to, that they're not trying to necessarily make you mad or drag their feet. It's just a different way of operating
Mhm.
in the world. Because
Does Ian have an undefined spleen?
I don't, I think he is, no, he is defined there because
Mm.
he is always on time.
Yeah.
He's the best time manager. He has the 50-27, the spleen to sacral.
Mm.
Anyways, so yes. So just being aware of that. Okay, let's move on to another one.
Okay.
Um okay, so let's talk about the academic side of it, as
Mm.
you mentioned, academic
Mm.
pressure and expectations. So did you worry that you just wouldn't know what to do or how to keep up, or like what when you said you were worried? What
Not not that I wouldn't necessarily know what to do or to keep up, but more that I felt pressured to be the best in the class.
No,
Like,
okay.
it was a point of pride in me on
Mhm.
test days to be the first one done. And it's not because I wasn't, like, purposely rushing through the tests.
Mhm.
I just would know the answers, and I was usually the first one done, and then I would usually also have the highest grade in the class. So
Mhm.
I
No,
always
I'm just kidding. No, I think that's wonderful.
So
Um,
that's the side that my academic pressure falls on.
yeah. And let's recall, we all know Haley has a defined head in Ajna. And so
Mhm,
it's interesting though, because your study style, you like to write everything down and
mhm,
take notes, right? Did you have a
yes.
specific way of doing that? And
It was always I always got the same type of notebook every year. I got the same pen, and I would just have all of my notes written in there, but what's kind of funny, I never really was a studier. Like,
right.
very rarely did I actually go back and look at those notes,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
the way I took them and the way I wrote them down, like, I was a very like, studious note taker, like, always
Mm-hmm.
paying attention in class, but I never necessarily studied them.
So that's interesting because what I was going to first touch on here is the definition in the head and ajna for your child and student. Um, Most people fall on the undefined side, especially undefined head, and then ajna, because of the fact that there's only three channels that will define the head, right?
Mhm,
And I find it, and it's interesting because to me it feels like it should be the opposite, but really with your defined head and ajna, I think if your child is defined there, they are going to have a specific way of processing information, I think. And it could be two different ways for you specifically. It's through that 64-47, which is kind of we talk about that's that abstract channel, but it also is very visual because a lot of
Mhm.
times the information you get comes in a more visual way in chunks. And so it's interesting to think about for you that it could have been your defined way of doing it was to actually see it writing out because like you said, you didn't go back and review it.
Mm-mm.
Were when you would take the test, when you were answering, were you able to visualize what you wrote down, or did you just know?
It I think it was either I could recall the information from like, seeing it on my notes,
Mhm,
or I would be able to, like, see almost and know when the teacher talked
mhm.
about it or the
Yeah,
professor talked about it.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so if your child is defined there, you might find that there is a style that works better for them that helps them kind of recall it in that way. If they're most likely, though, a lot of them are us, are undefined head and
Mhm,
especially undefined head najna. It's there's gonna be a level of anxiety there inherent in those centers because the head center is it's a pressure center, so it's if it's undefined especially, it's creating this amplified pressure on the rest of the system, and it's around ideas and inspiration and what is going to stick and how you're going to what are you going to learn. There's all these questions about there's all these questions always throughout the head, and then especially if they're undefined in the ajna as well, there comes this fear of not knowing, and the not self theme there in the undefined center of the ajna is this fear of, well, it's the not self behavior is this need to be certain, like they feel like they have to be certain, like they have to
mm.
know and they have to be certain. And to reassure them, if you know that about them, I mean, you don't have to say, your head undefined ajna is doing this, but just to kind of point out to them that it's okay if you're not recalling this information now. When you need to know things, you'll probably know it. It is being absorbed, but also to encourage them to it's so hard in schools, I think, with kids
Mhm,
because we need such an overhaul in the education system to take into account all the different learning styles.
mhm,
And I always say, because this is something your dad struggled with, he's dyslexic and it was never diagnosed. And he's an incredibly intelligent um, person and
mm,
out of the box thinker because he has an undefined head in ajna. And there's a lot of genius in those centers because these are people who are able to see things from all angles. They're taking in all different ways of learning and knowing, but it doesn't always stick, right?
mhm,
Because it's not meant to, right? You're defined, I have a defined ajna. There is going to be a certain way that I conceptualize and the way I process information. But if they're undefined, then your child is not. And so, really, if you, I think, take a closer look, like pay attention to how your child is processing information. If you've noticed a pattern, do they take a little more time, especially uh, this is another thing we're going to touch on, but we can touch on it here. Your uh, centers, the definition we call it, there's defined centers, but there's also different types of definition between like there might be a couple centers that are connected to each other, but not connected to other ones in your
mhm,
chart. And if you're looking at that, it means that these are people that might take a little more time to process it. And if they have open head and ajna, or just open, yeah, they'd have to have an open head if they have an open ajna, that really working on different ways to help them kind of organize their information so that these might be good at reviewing things later on. You said you didn't have to because you could hold on to that information and
mhm,
retain it. So with homework and studying and stuff like that, with the undefined ajna, it's I think good to still note taking. I was terrible at it. I couldn't
mm,
take notes. I couldn't. And they may be terrible at it. But I was absorbing the information when I was in the class, even though I didn't always know it.
mm,
Um, but so I'm let me thinking about it now. I'm like experimenting with different ways of helping them. uh, retain the information. It might be studious note taking. It might just be a quick review the day of, or it might be my favorite was just reading something and going to sleep. Like looking at your child's
Mhm.
definition there and asking them really how they feel about the information that's coming in, and do they see it visually? Are they more audio? Are they just kind of a little bit of both and just kind of working with that?
Mhm. Yeah. What it Ian has defined head motion?
He has defined ajna. He's got the 4323 like me.
Right,
Undefined
right.
head. Completely undefined head,
'Cause
completely undefined.
I was thinking about Ian, like, he was not a note taker either,
No,
same as
he's
you.
not a note taker. No, he was not. He with that channel of knowing. Um, but yeah, so he gets all those ideas, the information comes in, but he has very it's interesting. He's a very logical thinker, but his definition is in that knowingness channel, like Presley is too.
Mhm.
He does just know things, and it's probably why he wasn't a note taker because he he had a teacher who was like all his teachers would get on him about not working out his problems on paper.
Specifically math.
Math, right? Genius at math. And even as it got more and more complicated, he still was
Mhm.
doing it all in his head.
Yeah.
And the teacher was so mad because he would not show his work. And his
Mhm.
argument was, well, is it right? And she, yes, now he did make mistakes, but that was her point. Was like when it gets really complicated and you don't understand something, the teacher won't be able to help you if you haven't written it out.
Mhm.
And he's just like, well, it wasn't that important to him. He's 3'5". He's like, "Meh, I don't
I'll
care.
figure it out.
I'll figure it out." He did not take school as seriously as you did,
Mm-mm.
and he
Mm-mm.
did just fine.
Mm.
Okay, so let's see. Let's see what else I have here. Oh, that pressure and expectations. You also said something about that the expectation part, feeling like you had to be the best at it or whatever, which
Mhm.
definitely was
That
self
was all
pressure.
internal. Yeah.
Because your parents were not high academics. We were like, do your best, be good
Mhm.
at school. But I think that comes from your unconscious 1858 channel there, a little bit of wanting to be perfect.
Mhm.
Because I never
What,
told you you had
me?
to. Yeah,
No.
your competition. So maybe paying attention to that. And also, so gate 18 is the gate of correction. And also, that's in the spleen center. And even if it's undefined spleen center, that gate, if there's there, could put that pressure on them to really reassure your child that it's not intended for themselves to point out to themselves how to be perfect or any of that stuff, just to encourage them that they're really good at recognizing patterns and things that might need to be changed or adjusted, and how they could maybe share that input depending on their type, their strategy. But another one is that gate 48. They know a lot more than they think they do. But then there could also be that anxiety, that pressure that comes with feeling like they don't know anything. So these little nuances in your child's chart can help point out some of those pressures they might be feeling. Another big one is that will center definition, which majority of us have that undefined.
Mhm.
And there is definitely the, which you also have it undefined, there
Mhm.
is a lot of pressure to prove yourself
Mhm.
and to make sure that you are showing your value and your worth, and you're always trying to prove yourself. So just reassuring that the child, they don't have to prove anything, they just have to do their best. It doesn't have to be compared to anyone else, and to reassure them that they are still loved even if they get a B or a C, as long as they're trying their hardest, as far
Mhm.
as putting the effort in, not meaning like, you know what I mean. And then that reassurance is there for them. Okay. So when I look at some of these other things like homework, time management, we kind of touched on that already. It's really interesting if you don't want to get into all the nuances here. Really just looking at the type, strategy, authority, of
Mhm.
course, is the top level, how that child's sacral is meant to function, understanding that if they are undefined, they're most likely going to be taking on a lot of sacral energy throughout the day, and to allow them that time to decompress. I think one thing we don't, or as parents, think about often. I mean, I didn't know this when you guys were younger, and I
Mhm.
still, even though I know this, it makes it harder. I still don't do it. The whole, like, how you respond and how you communicate well with
Mm.
people who are sacrals or non-sacrals, right?
Mhm.
And so your kid gets in the van, van, car,
It's in the vehicle.
the car, vehicle at the end of the school day. They're in a mood, right? As a parent, please, understanding your child's type will make this go so much easier for you, because this is where
Mhm.
we butt heads. We want to know what's going on. We want to know what happened. We want to know if something's wrong. Okay, you've got to understand how to communicate with them, right? Because if you're a sacral child, or if your child is a sacral defined child, if you say, "What's wrong?" They're going to "Mm, nothing,
Uh-huh.
nothing," right? But if you could start learning to communicate with them with these yes or no questions from the get go. So when they get in the car, did you have a good day? Yes or no, they'll tell you. If it's yes, great. Oh, you had a good day. So do you know what made it a good day? Yes. And then, okay, you want to share that with me? Yes. And then let them talk about it. Same thing if it's like, did you have a good day? No. Okay. Do you want to talk about it? No.
No.
Okay, leave it alone. Just leave it
Mhm.
alone. Don't pressure them. And maybe you could ask, okay, I understand. Maybe do you think you
Can we
might want
talk
to talk
about it
about it later?
later?
Yes. Yeah. After you have a snack? Yes.
Do
Maybe they're just hungry because they had lunch
you
at
want a
9 a.m.
snack? God, it's so horrible.
Likewise, if your projector child gets in the, how was your day? I'm curious. How did it go today? What are your thoughts? What did you think about your
Mhm.
classmates? What did you think about your teacher? Does that feel better for you, Haley, to hear a question like that?
Yes, yes, as a question phrase like that, but I was
Oh,
also
I see. I just did it. I'm a generator. So I'm like, yes or no, Haley, does that work?
and you see I said yes, and then I was going on.
Well, that's important. No, that's important because they say that when you ask a yes or no question to a non-sacral projector or whatever, you might get a more conditioned response from them. But if you ask them, so Haley, what are your thoughts on this about communication styles with different
Yes.
sacral?
So I was gonna agree with the phrasing of the questions, but then I was also going to say, like, honestly, me, if I have spent all day around a
Mm,
bunch of sacral energy, by the
mm-hmm,
time I would be getting in the car with you or done with my
mm-hmm.
day or whatever, I don't want to communicate with anyone else. I just
Interesting.
wanna be left alone and just, like, do my own thing.
And that is, I'm so glad you said that, because that is so, so important, because you are a smaller sect of the population, and parents, I think this is so um, valuable when they can learn this about their child, to understand how they're meant to function, because things like that could, without the knowledge, could create a lot of conflict in parental and child relationships, because then the parent might feel, well, she's just not talking to me and she's mad at me. And you start making up all these stupid stories
Mhm.
about what's wrong. And you're just like, it's just too much.
I said,
I just need
"Just
to
please."
decompress.
Yeah.
And you didn't know you were a projector. You didn't know
Mm-mm.
any of those things.
No.
And yeah, I guess you were kind of, a lot of times, just kind of like, leave me alone. And so, yeah, if that's important to remember when dealing with your children, to honor their energy and how it best functions for them. And it's amazing the difference in the interactions you can have that feel more supportive for them, but also kind of takes the pressure off you as the parent of knowing the right thing to do, because
Mhm.
you just give them time. They'll just give them a snack.
Usually worked for me.
Yeah, let them live. Yeah, and then also, that's really important. I'm looking at some of my notes here. One thing I think, when you touched on earlier about social anxiety, peer relationships, and this can kind of go into separation anxiety from parents, all
Mhm.
these more. feeling things. There's so many things there that we could talk about, but I just want to touch on, make sure talk about the, which one was I going to go for first? Uh, G center definition in your child, because the G center is the center of
Self.
self, love, and direction. And I think that if your child has an undefined G center, to really pay attention to what your child is telling you about their day or about their classroom or about their teacher. And I know that it's not always possible to change some of these things, but they might be like, I really don't like the classroom. I don't like the way it feels, or I don't like being in this situation, or when I'm around these people, or, really how their teacher makes them feel. If they're open in that center, or even the emotional solar plexus, a lot of these open centers, you may not be able to change it. If you can
Mhm.
try, but it's kind of hard. Depends on what kind of school they go to. It's nothing personal really to the teacher or to the anything like that, but open G centers are very sensitive to environment. Environment's very important to them. And if they're not feeling good there, then it's not like it's a bad environment. It's just something in that environment is not necessarily correct for them.
Mhm.
Like I said, this is where the homogenized education system gets really difficult for children, because there's
Yeah.
not a lot you can do there. However, if you are aware that this could be a function of their energy, to not also start taking or creating stories in your head that this teacher's doing something wrong to your child or XYZ, but maybe just talking it out with them and seeing what it is, that if they can identify what it feels like.
Mhm.
um, but then just to allow them to be able to talk about that, but also reassure them that when they're home, they have their place. This is their environment. Make sure
Mhm.
they have a space environment in their home that does feel good to them, that is
Mhm.
somewhere that they can go after having been in an environment if they don't have a choice about being there. And this will help set them up as they get older of coping mechanisms like in the workplace, right? Because we don't have control over a lot of these things. But if you can create that quote unquote safe space for them at their home, it could make
Mhm.
it a little bit easier for them if they're having a school year that is challenging in that way. So
Yeah.
that's why knowing that's important.
Mhm.
Did you have something to add? You have an open G center. No?
I just I don't know, I never feel like I know myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes to the peer pressure, to the anxiety there. I always said, now, I didn't know all this stuff about human design when you guys were growing up,
Mhm.
but I just tried to do my best. And for my instincts led me to believe that if you, because when I grew up, I was a weirdo. I intentionally tried to be the weirdo. I made
'Cause
myself the outcast.
you have a
I have
defined.
I have a defined G center. I was very much anti-establishment in a Catholic school, so that was fun.
Yeah.
But I found that I believe that if you give your children a place where they belong, defined or undefined G center, doesn't matter. If you and your family are able to treat them as the individuals that they are, honor them as they are. Don't try to put your conditioning as much as you can onto them, trying to make them something they're not, something you wish you were, something that your parents wished you were. All these things that we unintentionally do to our children.
Mhm.
If you can just honor who they are and see them as the the beautiful individuals that they are, here to have their own experience in life, and give them that safe space in your home. I think parents are getting better at this, but
Mhm.
give them a place to belong, that where they can be themselves and still belong no matter what their quirks or whatever is. And I think if a child has a place that they know 100% where they belong without any question, they don't feel the need to conform to other people's versions of them at school. They're not out there looking for other groups to take them in, to give
Mhm.
them their sense of identity. That being said, your Open G Center kids, they're probably going to have lots of different friend groups. They may feel, they might, like you said, you were more popular than you realize because
No.
you just kind of, with your Open G Center, I think we're able to mix in with lots of different types of kids, right?
Yeah.
And just you were able to feel into who, and you have an undefined solar plexus, you were able to feel into
Mm.
how these people were, and you kind of just knew how to
Yeah.
move here, move
I mean,
there,
like,
who made you feel
I had, like,
good.
my core friends that, like, we always had lunch together and all of that, like, I hung out with, but then, like, I mean, I won homecoming queen somehow.
I know. The total underdog that never even tried to be homecoming queen became homecoming
Mm-mm.
queen. I know. We were all shocked.
We were.
In fact, when they read it out, I thought they were reading out like the runner up. I was like, "Oh wait, dude, did they just say she won?"
Me and Daddy standing on the field, we heard I think she was the princess or she was the runner-up, we heard her name called, and
Mhm.
we're like, "Oh, she won, cool," and then we heard mine and we're like, "What?"
Whoopsie. Good thing. Got your hair done that day.
Mhm.
Anyways, I digress. So I want to wrap this up. I could keep going on, I'm sure, and I hope there's been a few things here, but I have two more things I want to touch on.
Mhm.
Okay. First of all, again, it goes back to that sacral authority and your kids getting involved in extracurricular activities. Just be mindful if you have a child who is undefined in the sacral center that they may want to pack their schedule. I mean, you were the one that did all the extracurricular activities in the
Mhm.
family. You were the one with the undefined sacral, but you were like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. That's great. But
But
just carve out some time in your child's schedule where you, even if you have to force it on them, that they have some automatic downtime built into their schedule where they will be able to do absolutely nothing and
Mhm.
enforce that. I swear it's counter to American culture to do nothing, but this is so important for your non-sacral children to have that time and space where they are allowed to just do nothing.
Mhm.
And even if it's one day a week or a couple hours in a weekend or whatever, make them not schedule anything. So
Mhm.
goes to it.
Yeah.
The other thing I really wanted to touch on, well, is
Wait,
hmm, what?
first of all, is your point still on extracurricular, or are we moving off of that? Because I would like to
No,
add something on
add something.
extracurricular.
I was going to move off. So add something for sure.
So, yeah, what I wanna add about extracurricular activities is and this may be more my spleen,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would be more exaggerated with the undefined or defined, but I would say if your child don't be mad with your child if they no longer want to do an extracurricular activity. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
they started doing it and they said, "I don't wanna do this anymore." Like, case in point, when I retook dance when I was
Mm-hmm.
a little bit older, I got,
Mm-hmm.
like, partway through it, and I came to you and I was like, "I don't wanna do this anymore. Like, it's not
Mm-hmm.
fun for me anymore." And you weren't mad at me or anything for wanting to stop it. You're like, "Okay, we'll stop."
Well, I guess, yeah, on the spleen definition is like whatever felt good then also. That is a good point to bring up because the sacral response too, if your child is responding something to something, look at the sacral response for sure. If they're like, oh yeah, I want to play football or whatever, pay attention to their authority as well because you're splenic authority. So
Mhm,
that's moment to moment. It could be good for you now, maybe not be good for you later. Sacral, if they're emotional defined, they may get that hit, but make sure they have some time to think about the commitment, not think about, but feel into it. We talked
mhm,
about authority all the time. Maybe if they are projector also with the mental projectors thing, giving them time to talk and really listen to them, what they have to say, ask them questions about what they think the commitments would be, why they want to do it. Just let them talk about it, express their
mhm,
thoughts before they get too committed to something. That's a very good point. And this one of the last things I wanted to kind of wrap up because I know, like I said, we could keep going. There's lots of other
mhm,
things. And if you have more questions about that and you want to ask us about that, if we haven't touched on a specific question you have, please make sure you utilize that fan mail function. Did I say that right? Fan mail function
Mhm.
um, in your podcast player that'll let you ask us a question. We'll be happy to answer it
Mhm.
here on the
Mhm.
podcast for you. But being a projector, having projected channels, do you have an undefined throat? When it comes to school and interacting with people and reducing some of that anxiety and allowing them to kind of move easier into these group settings, get them very in touch with their strategy. Do they need to be responding to things? Do they need to be waiting? I want to say invitation kind of thing. Should
Mhm.
they be informing people of what they're thinking of doing? Because we kids can be so excited to want to join in or do something, or maybe they stick their nose in where they shouldn't because maybe they haven't been asked yet to
Mhm.
just kind of. I feel you should start this as soon as you can with your children to really get them in touch with understanding their strategy and kind of seeing what shows up if they are generator types, things they can respond to. Um, and waiting to be asked a lot of times as far as that throat definition, the more they can just kind of hold back their information, they actually will be asked and they will be
Mhm.
recognized and they will be
Mhm.
invited in to share things. But you know that
It's very hard.
when you tried to share, even you really knew you had to share something, it doesn't land well.
No.
It doesn't for your projectorness and your undefined
Okay.
throat. But that's just another thing is
Mhm.
really knowing your kids' type strategy. We didn't even touch on profile. My God, that could be
Mm-mm.
really helpful with homework, how they like to learn. There's so much there. But I hope we gave enough for now
Mhm.
to ease those things, just to really, last thing, parents, know your own design as well,
Yeah.
because you've got to know how you're impacting your kids. You've got to know if your emotional energy is high and you're worried and all these things and your kid is undefined in the areas where you're defined, you're going to freak them out.
Yeah.
let's let's just put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Maybe I am glad. Let's see. You are emotionally undefined,
Mhm.
but I did try to. Sometimes I would push a little bit more, but I learned to back off some because I was so afraid of alienating you in our relationship because it was so good when you were little. I was so scared as you got older that we would like be butting heads like my mom and I did. Even though I loved her dearly, like
Mhm.
she drove me crazy in those years. She was always trying to ask me what was wrong all the time. I'm like, nothing's wrong, leave me alone. And but really just I always like to say keep your side of the street clean, keep yourself regulated, be that stable center in your child's life and know the impact you're having on them. And that's the best thing I think you can do for your kid is to clean up your own shit and make sure you're doing the best you can,
Mhm.
being yourself in order to mirror that for them and allow them to be themselves and help them feel safe and like they're not in some big scary environment at home as well. Oh, so many
Yeah.
things there. Just I've seen the effects of that in
Yes,
other
we
people's
have.
life and it's terrible. But
Mhm.
anyways, I have faith that if you're listening to this, you take this very seriously and you are already trying to keep your side of the street clean and I applaud you for that and I encourage you to keep doing that. I think you're doing a great job. And really, if you're listening to this, it's you want to do the best for your kids. And I can feel that. And we're here to help you in any way that we can. So
Mhm.
we're just going to leave it there for today.
Yeah. I just wanna say, don't gift your shit.
Don't gift your shit.
Don't gift your shit.
What do you mean by that?
Just don't give your shit to other people.
Oh, an unwanted gift.
Yep.
It is an unwanted gift. That's awesome. All right. So, you know what that means, Haley?
I do.
It's time for
The Incarnation Cross of the Week.
that is correct. I love that we've never come up with a jingle or transition. We're just going to keep it right there.
That is the jingle. What do you mean?
That is the jingle. Okay, so this week we have the Incarnation Cross the Week, which we just did our episode maybe last week, I think, about Incarnation Cross. If you need a primer on that, about
It's pretty
how
recent.
it works and how it functions. But there are 192 Incarnation Crosses, which are
Mhm.
basically combination of the top 4 numbers on either side of your chart, your conscious sun and earth, and your unconscious sun and earth. It's those 4 gates make up your Incarnation Cross. Each one
Mhm.
has a theme, and it's basically your journey, your path in life, what you're here to bring into this world, because this is one of the biggest percentages of your energy expression in the world is your
Mhm.
Incarnation Cross. And so this week we are going to look at the left angle cross of healing.
Ooh.
So left angle cross means
Means the
this
profile starts with
profile.
a 5 or a 6.
Correct. Thank you very much. Okay, so this cross, if you were born under this cross, means your personality sun on the right side of your chart, the black numbers, is in gate 25, which is the spirit of the self.
Mm.
Your conscious earth on that side is going to be in gate 46, which is the love of the body, G center gate. On the unconscious side, your sun is going to be in gate 58, joy. And your earth is going to be in gate 52, stillness, that mountain, the stillness.
So we have it's oh my
Like
god, what was it?
spirit, it's
Spirit
like
of the self, love of the
body,
body, joy,
joy, and
and
stillness.
stillness. Interesting. Let's see how this plays into healing.
Yeah. So if you were born under this cross of healing, you came into this world to make others aware of how important health is for living a good life. And you inspire others to live healthy and joyful lives. By focusing on improving their well being, you ensure everyone knows they can enjoy life more and fix anything that takes away their happiness. You help others connect with the joy that comes from living in line aligned with their higher purpose. By guiding people to fully embrace their purpose, you support them in reaching their full potential. You heal by helping individuals remember their true calling, finding blessings and new perspectives from past experiences. Your work ensures that people can live healthier, more joyful lives fully aligned with their higher purpose.
Love it.
I'm sorry, I started to laugh a minute because I looked up at the screen. I saw my cat walking in the background.
Yes.
Of course, as soon as I started
Hmm.
reading, she wanted to like get out of the door,
Yes.
but she's been sleeping in the chair for the last like 6 hours. Very busy day. Okay,
She was
so
practicing her stillness.
she is still. All right, so there we go. Everybody out there listening, if you have your kid back at school or children, I hope this makes the transition a little bit easier. Take care of your families, take care of yourselves, and until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye, Haley. You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.